Through over 4 decades of service at the College of Law at the University of Utah, John Flynn believed and taught that the men and women who practice law should do so with a conscience.
I think John Flynn, for the faculty, represented the strongest commitment to fierce intellectual freedom. He lived that, he breathed it, he taught it, and by example, I think, helped establish a culture within the college.
He just dug in deeper, talking about the bigger things in life, and we did that all the time, even outside of class.
He was that inner voice, I think, of the law school. He was the one behind the dean's ear. He was the one always pushing for those things that really were going to make a difference.
Thousands of future lawyers and judges passed through his classrooms, and they all received his very particular education. He always wanted his students to see not only the intricate problems before them, but the people whose lives were touched by those problems, because, as he said so often, every legal decision is a moral decision.
John Flynn created community at the University of Utah College of Law. He was the father figure to most of the faculty and most of the students here. He went out of his way to make sure that everyone felt warm and connected to the college.
We live in a society where jokes about ruthless lawyers are commonplace. If John Flynn was your teacher, then the lesson you learned was to do the right thing.
Many have said he was the conscience of the law school, and that's not to put any of the other professors in a lesser role, but John Flynn was unique in that kind of approach, really being the conscience. He could take on a legal issue, he would analyze it, as most people can, but he'd always take it a step further. And that further step involved, okay, is there a morality here?
He had a reputation of caring for his students and for all faculty and staff that was unmatched. When I arrived at the college in 1994, no one was a better teaching mentor to me than John.
A lot of my classmates and I were all very stressed out because first-year grades had just come out, and all of a sudden we became numbers instead of names, and there was a lot of stress. And I remember being worried, and I went to Professor Flynn and I talked to him about it, and he proceeded to change the entire course of a class to kind of build around that theme of us being individuals as opposed to numbers or statistics or lawyers to be, but to really pursue our passion, pursue what we care about, and to be committed to the practice of law, but as well as to ourselves and our communities.
John Flynn was also one of the preeminent legal minds in his chosen field of antitrust. His counsel was sought by the U.S. Senate and House, federal and state courts, and the White House.
Class was much more about how the rubber met the road. You know, people going in front of Congress and in front of the committees and saying, this is working, this isn't, and how entire industries grew and collapsed, and what those bottlenecks were. And it so much taught more about life and how things went that way than anything else in any other classes that I was taking in law school.
The issues John addressed on the national level were massive: energy, medicine, telecommunications, and computing. His passion was to bring fairness and balance to these industries, to ensure that the people who worked in them and those of us who used their goods and services would get a fair deal. The College of Law at the University of Utah is constructing a new building to house one of the most innovative legal education programs in the nation.
So on the top floor of the building, we are literally and figuratively elevating debate. And we have in our plans a state-of-the-art conference center. And within that conference center, we have a 400 to 450 person auditorium, what we would call our Moot courtroom, but it will be used, of course, for more than just Moot court. It will be used for all of our conference activity, lectures, the ability to pull the entire community together in one space.
It presents itself as a lasting legacy to John Flynn. He was really the soul of the law school.
Today, we have a once-in-a-century chance to name this space in honor of John Flynn in perpetuity and to include a display that carries forward his philosophy to new generations.
But for this school accepting me, but for my education, I wouldn't have had the success I have. And I'm sure that's true of many others. So it's time to give back.